Canada is the focus of a new initiative in Ottawa after the federal government has created a new stat holiday to commemorate survivors of the residential school system. Humber News takes a look at the new path towards reconciliation. Only 22 years after the closing of the last residential school, the Trudeau government is planning to announce a new statutory holiday, but unlike other holidays, this is not a celebration. National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, Perry Bellegarde, spoke to the importance of having this holiday.
Is a chance to educate all Canadians about the impacts of the residential school and the impacts that we still see in 2018 and beyond, the intergenerational trauma, the intergenerational impacts of the residential schools.
The government issued a statement saying that they're working to decide on a date with two possible days being considered, June 21st, which is National Indigenous Peoples Day, or September 30th, representing Orange Shirt Day. While a date has not yet been decided, tweets have already poured in to support the honorary holiday from various people. Bringing about the holiday is one of the 94 recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Call to action number 80 on the Truth and Reconciliation Act asks the government to honor the survivors of the residential schools, and a change petition which called for this holiday says that's exactly what Indigenous people will push for.
The Bruce MacArthur investigation continues as Toronto police have uncovered more human remains near the back of a East York home today. Bags were previously seen being loaded into a coroner's van where they were taken to undergo testing. Toronto police hope the search would be the last at the Mallory Crescent property.
Well, we're still working on the cold cases that I've talked about before. That work is not complete yet, but hopefully this will be the end of the
Previously, the remains of the 7 men were found in garden plants at the same location, but Majid Kahan's remains are yet to be identified. The ROM has a new exhibit on display featuring 8-legged creepy crawlers. Matthew Frank has the story.
The Royal Ontario Museum is getting creepy and crawly with their new exhibit, Spiders, Fear and Fascination. Spiders, which have been around longer than dinosaurs, have faced many misconceptions, but have helped create some pretty amazing things. One of the most noteworthy is the golden spider silk cloth, made from the silk of around 1 million golden orb weaver spiders.
And so our job is to educate people generally about insects and their relatives, and very few things are more fascinating than spiders, so that was definitely something that we wanted to highlight here.
Throughout my work here, the spider will slowly wake up. So I have to be fast. We will try to get the views for you guys. But if the spider wakes up really quickly, we might have to stop. So we'll see how that goes. So far so good. I assure you that it's very much alive. It's just sleeping.
Some components of spider venom are being used as painkillers. Others are being used to alleviate the effects of stroke. And there are many other purposes. It's a little bit on the low profile because it's still on research. So not a lot of it is out there and published. You can understand that some of these companies, they want to patent it. Some of the uses, but there's definitely research going on, and there is high potential to these compounds.
Okay.
We're getting a little bit of venom. I hope you can see.
So did you come out of here learning a lot than you possibly knew before?
More of having fun.
Were you fearful of spiders before coming here?
Not really, no. So-so.
So you really enjoyed it then?
Yeah, it was nice.
The Royal Ontario Museum really seems to be weaving a picture of what visitors can come to expect at this year's exhibit, which runs until January of next year, where visitors can come to be amazed and maybe even leave with something a little more. For Humber News, this is Matthew Frank.
Now for
an update on the Bruce McArthur case. Lindsay Charlton has more.
It's a quiet day in the Mallory Crescent neighborhood, but Toronto police are continuing their excavation of a ravine behind 53 Mallory Crescent, where alleged serial killer Bruce McArthur is believed to have dumped the remains of bodies of some 8 men he murdered. Reporters were given a glimpse into the excavation in the ravine last week, and Detective Sergeant Hank Idzigna gave an update on what forensics have found.
Afternoon, human remains were located at one of the first digging sites. These remains have been brought to Ontario Forensic Pathology Services for further examination. The excavation continues, and we anticipate being here for, at least until next week.
Toronto police returned to the house on Mallory Crescent, where the remains of 7 suspected murder victims were found buried in planters earlier this year, with cadaver dogs on July 3rd, and began excavating in a ravine behind the property. More dismembered body parts were found, prompting forensic officers to continue sifting. The remains of Majid Khan, 58, have yet to be found. The investigation is expected to continue until the end of this week. Investigators are expected to continue the excavation over the next few weeks. McArthur is due back in court on July 23rd. I'm Lindsay Charlton, Humber News.
While details are continuing to emerge on the police investigation into the mass shooting on the Danforth, we are now learning more about the victims as well. Police have now just identified Julie Anna Kosis as a 10-year-old girl who was killed in the mass shooting in Toronto's Danforth neighborhood on Sunday. However, where along the Danforth Avenue strip Kosis was shot has not been made known at present. Her family has since asked for privacy during their time of grief. The Sunday shooting also claimed the life of 18-year-old Reese Fallon and injured 13 others. A memorial was left outside the fountain at Danforth and Logan Avenue to honor the victims. The 29-year-old gunman, identified Monday as Fazil Hussein, also died. The injured have gone to hospital with minor to life-altering injuries. Markham Mayor Frank Scarpetti gave a statement Tuesday evening following the shooting and expressed his heartfelt sentiments on the matter. Flags have since been set at half-mast at Markham Civic Center today in honor of Kosis. And tributes continue to pour in over social media as her identity has become known to the public.
That could signal a significant shift in the U.S. Justice Anthony Kennedy has retired from the Supreme Court after 30 years on the bench. Kennedy, who is now 81 years old, swore in the newest Justice, Neil M. Gorsuch, on Wednesday.
Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United
Trump
States.
replaced one conservative
of the Supreme Court of the United States. Under the Constitution and laws of the United States.
Under the Constitution and laws of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Trump replaced one conservative with the other when he chose Gorsuch to take the justice seat with Kennedy gone. With Kennedy gone, Trump now has the ability to reshape his cabinet and move it to the right when he replaces Kennedy, who was seen as more of a centrist.
To do it during my term in office because he felt confident in me to make the right choice and carry on his great legacy. That's why he did it.
Kennedy, who was a Ronald Reagan appointee and sworn in 1988, did many things in the span of his career, including siding with his conservatives on gun control, voting rights, striking down election spending to corporations, and helping George Bush secure his presidency in Bush versus Gore.
That Justice Kennedy wasn't moderate on everything. He was a conservative who was moderate or even liberal on certain issues.
And to the dismay of those on his cabinet, Justice Kennedy sided with liberals on such issues as abortion rights, affirmative action, and the death penalty. His most lasting legacy is probably in the way of gay rights, when in 2015 he made a landmark opinion and cleared the way for same-sex marriage across all 50 states. Although time proves that he's one of the more unpredictable justices, dignity and liberty were all too present themes in Kennedy's time in office.
Leave you today with this. Chicago has welcomed a new guest to the Field Museum, a senior of 122 feet across and 38 feet tall. It's like something straight from the movies. The Chicago Field Museum has created a cast of its latest dinosaur. The scientific community named the plant eater from Argentina Maximo.
Maximo is a cast of the largest dinosaur known, so this is sort of the endpoint for these gigantic animals. Maximo lived about 100 million years ago. The skeleton is 122 feet long. Comparing that with Sue, that people are familiar with, Sue is about 40 feet long.
Unlike Sue, the T-Rex visitors will be able to engage with Maximo. The dinosaur is one of a kind, allowing visitors to touch the cast model and walk under it. The dinosaur makes its premiere at the museum this Friday.
Foreign Minister Chrystia Freeland again last night denounced President Donald Trump's imposed tariffs as illegal and absurd. She did this as she received the Diplomat of the Year award in Washington and used this opportunity as a platform to go one step further. On Wednesday, Canada's foreign minister used her platform to deliver a dark and dire warning of the dangers of angry populism and the threats it possesses to the Western world and its partners.
When people feel their economic future is in jeopardy, when they believe their children have fewer opportunities than they themselves had in their youth, that's when people are vulnerable to the demagogue who scapegoats the outsider, the other, whether it's immigrants at home or trading partners abroad.
Although Freeland did not name President Donald Trump in her speech, she expressed no concern for his critics.
Matter. Truth. Truth matters.
Just hours earlier, Freeland met with the U.S. committee and used opportunities to call out Trump's imposed tariffs which have been placed on aluminum and steel products.
232 action, which is, let me remind people, a national security consideration, is frankly absurd. The notion that Canadian steel and aluminum could pose a national security threat to the United States, I think Americans understand it's simply not the case. That action is also illegal under WTO and NAFTA rules.
Freeland is the first minister to go to the U.S. after Trump attacked Trudeau on Twitter, and unless Trump can rescind his comments, Canada's best shot for tariffs to be appended is a bill that would give the Senate power over the president. Republican Senator Jeff Flake defended Canada's response.
On the planet, and to be told that they represent a national security threat, that the export of steel and aluminum is threatening our national security. That's insulting. It really is. And so I frankly commend Canada for its measured and sober response to this.
Outsider, the other.
Freeland also spoke of salvaging NAFTA and that she remains committed to reaching the trilateral deal and partnering with Mexico.
Those great words at Gettysburg. Government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
Fires remain active in the forests of northeastern Ontario after days of efforts by the local firefighters to put it out. The fires are concentrated in two areas, Temiskaming and Parry Sound 33 in South Sudbury. The situation in Sudbury has significantly improved with some rain in the region on Wednesday. Firefighters mainly relied on helicopters to get to the sites as their vehicles failed to make way into the remote locations. A total of 14 helicopters have been deployed to put out the fires, according to Ontario's Aviation, Forest Fire and Emergency Services.
There are 249 personnel assigned to this fire. That includes firefighters and also support staff. So we have, for instance, the fire is being managed by an incident management team from Alberta. We have crews from Mexico, there's crews from Ontario, and also personnel from Newfoundland as well.
The local government has already put out notice to evacuate some neighborhoods due to the fires.